I think on its most basic form, overarching purpose of load monitoring is to try to capture the load our players are subjected to be able to compare that with what was planned in our training plan. So if we take a look at an individual training plan, so this is a mock-up of a training session plan for an individual practice. And we can see that already we have to account for both the offense and the defense, but that also the session is aligned so that when they need to come together and train together, they can. And I'm going to pull out two specific challenges here. The first one being quantifying these positional demands that I've already alluded to, particularly here in this individual drill period where they split into their different positions, but also how we then track that over time. And when I personally think about external load demands, naturally, the first thing I think about are kind of the traditional time motion analysis metrics. And here we see from a paper by Aaron Wellman in Division I football, games tracked with GPS technology. And this is the average demands for a wide receiver in those games. And as we would expect for that position group, notable time motion analysis load demands in terms of distances covered above certain speed thresholds, the amount of acceleration and the kind of speeds that they're hitting. But let's contrast that then with a different position group. So here we see the same metrics for the linemen and a real difference in, at least in terms of these metrics, what their load demands are. And I think we need to reflect on whether these specific metrics are relevant or if they're just available to us. I think that's an important question, regardless of your sport, and especially as technology and the metrics available to us continue to expand. But perhaps that question is even more important in a sport like this, where there's such diversity in the positional demands. So let's maybe consider some other measures of external load. Firstly, throws with a quarterback would be an obvious one. And again, we now have available sleeves with accelerometers built into them to give objective measures of throwing intensity and torque and such. I would say that technology currently is more prevalent in baseball, but perhaps that is a reflection on the difference in the throwing action between pitchers and quarterbacks. And that's also reflected in the different injury epidemiology. So Tommy John surgeries are more prevalent in baseball. And so perhaps there's more of a justification for that kind of load monitoring in that sport. What about trying to emphasize more of the contact demands in our players, particularly in the linemen? One wearable technology company has spent some time quantifying this, but again, that is based on movement being a wearable technology. And so we have to question whether that is relevant to us, or are we in fact underestimating the demands that are more isometric, those wrestling and grappling demands that position group is subjected to. And thirdly, what about kicks with our kickers? So frequency and intensity in terms of the length of kick is currently tracked, but we now have technology available where IMUs are placed on the boot. But again, how much value is that going to add to our program? And another caveat to all of this discussion is that come game day, any of those technologies are not accessible to us. So on a game day, the current provider for NFL is based on RFID technology. So we are only getting X and Y coordinates. which enables us to calculate time motion analysis. But any of those wearable devices that we might use through the week would not be available to us come game day.